and hand it over.
Thank you, Carl. Now, before we start, I'd like to let you know that you will need pen and paper or use your computer to write things down throughout this interactive session. So I'll give you a few minutes to find them. All right. And JF, you sharing the screen?
There we go.
Right. Well, thank you, Tel Talk. Welcome, Tel Talk. We invite you to go on a tour with us as we share with you how we navigate the HR waters to increase your business agility. You don't need to be HR to affect change. You just need to be a daredevil. Hi, my name is Mun-Wai. You can also call me MW. I've been on this agile journey for more than 20 years. I worked in organizations all over the world, started in engineering and ended with my last corporate title as chief of staff when I started messing around in HR, finance, and facilities. My goal is simple. I go after anything or any group that hinders the team working effectively together to produce a product that delights the customers. You can find more information on my website.
Hello, I'm JF. It's short for John Francis, which is my first name. I've been working in Silicon Valley, California for the past 30 years now. And my Agile journey started in 1998 when, as an engineer, I decided to try things I read about on Net News and apply them to my team. The results surprised me, and I've been doing Agile since then, constantly growing and learning.
We'll start by doing some impromptu networking. Now, you'll be put in pairs. We'll give you 4 sentences to complete and a question to answer. Share your thoughts with your partner and see if you can co-create better ideas. There'll be 3 rounds of paired conversations, 4 minutes for each round. After each round, we'll bring you back here, reset the rooms, and send you out to game. After the 3rd round, we'll come back together and you will share the co-created ideas with the rest of us. Now, let me first show you the 4 sentences and a question. First one is the slide change. Thank you. Does my company do Agile HR? Yes, no, maybe, don't know. Second, when I see HR's email that it's time to do performance review, The 3rd one, the purpose of performance assessment is. The 4th, I am valued if. And the last one, I am, with how I'm being recognized today. I wish my company would. I'm going to put that in chat so you can actually refer to it in the breakout room. All right, JF, are we ready to break out now?
Just give me a couple of seconds.
All right.
I am ready to open the breakout rooms.
Okay, see you all in a few minutes.
Zoom recording.
Yep.
Share screen.
Here we go. So we had 2 less people, huh? Supposedly 17 and now 15.
Yes.
All right. Welcome back. People are, I think they're all back. Wonderful. Welcome back, everyone. So let's hear some answers of what you have discussed. So you can either unmute yourself and shout it out, or you can type in the chat. So let's go through it one by one. Does my company do Agile HR? Yes, no, maybe. First question. Yes, no, maybe, don't know. Type it in chat. Unmute.
Maybe, no.
No, maybe.
Yes,
Okay. Yes.
I have to say that I didn't know what Agile HR is, so don't know.
Okay. Don't know is good. Maybe-ish. Okay, maybe kind of. Okay. All right. Very funny, Johanna. My company does, but it's just me. I'm glad you do then. All right. So when I see HR's email that it's time to do performance review, what's your reaction? I cringe. I cheat. I roll my eyes.
Yeah.
You cheat. That's a good one. I would love to hear that story. Didn't do it yet. Okay.
Grin and bear it. Ooh.
Well, after he
my rise, yes. Google performance review.
Never done one. Wow, that's nice. Okay. Well, then what do you think is the purpose of the performance assessment? So the purpose of performance assessment is
Money.
Ongoing communication. Cynical answer, manage salary money. Yep. Reward, promote, fire. To give money. Set goals, never follow it up. Personal development. I like that. Set goals and never follow it up. Really like that. All right. Okay. Orgs use it to justify pay rises, promotions, or lack of. Okay. Feedback on forgettable situations. All right. So I feel valued if I have a voice. Yeah. If I have autonomy and room to grow. Okay. If I have my salary rise. Yeah. Any others? If I'm
recognized, yes.
My contribution is recognized. I'm comfortable enough to share my views. My team says, I like what you're doing. I get timely feedback, positive. What happened if it's negative? I'm told I'm doing well and then given some more money if I have influence. Okay. Recognition, impact. All right. Let's move on to the last one. I am with being recognized today. I wish my company would.
Happy.
Be.
Adopt more agile practices.
Agile practices. I'm satisfied with a company with work from home.
That's another topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk to me more frequently. Ooh.
Okay. I'm happy because I'm in my own company. Yes. I am happy with how I'm recognized today, which my company would be more focused. Okay. You're not impressed. You wish a company would be more innovative with their review tactics and approaches. All right. Well, wonderful. I hope you all met some new people and had a good discussion. Now, we all know that the current performance management doesn't work when Agile first started because it concentrates on individuals instead of promoting team collaboration. However, it's not until recently that more people are paying attention to this aspect of Agile transformation. So let's take a quick look at the Agile HR finance timeline. You see here that the timeline is divided in two halves. The top concentrates on the Agile HR finance related activities in Europe and the bottom in the US. So in 1998, Beyond Budgeting Roundtable was founded in the UK. For those of you who haven't heard of Beyond Budgeting, the word budgeting is used as a generic term for the traditional command and control management model with the annual budget process at its core. In this context, it describes both a management culture and a performance management system. So beyond budgeting means beyond command and control towards a management model that is more empowered and adaptive. And that was before Agile Manifesto, published in 2001. Now let's take a look at the rest of the Europe timeline. Spotify was founded in 2006, though the HR blog didn't come out until 2016. And in 2010, Agile Network started in Finland by Rina Hellström, and in Germany, Agile for HR initiative was started as well as Agile HR meetups. And in December 2010, Jürgen Appelo from the Netherlands published Management 3.0 book. And shortly after, in 2011, Pia-Maria Thoren from Sweden started having Agile HR courses. And in May 2012, Jürgen Appelo published another book called How to Change the World, Change Management 3.0. And in 2016, he published yet another book called Managing for Happiness. And in 2017, a book was published in Sweden called Agile People, A Radical Approach for HR and Managers by Pia-Maria Thoren. Also, Agile HR Community started by Rina Hellström from Finland and Natal Dank from the UK. Now let's see how the US fares. In mid-1990s, the company BMA started lean accounting. And in 2001, Beyond Budgeting Roundtable North America started. And in the next 10 years, not much happens except a few people in the US writing about Agile HR topics like Esther Derby and Johanna Rothman, who is actually here with us today. And in 2014, finally something more concrete. Agile Alliance at Beyond Budgeting as one of the keynotes in Agile 2014 conference. And in 2015, Agile Capitalization was one of the sessions in Agile 2015 conference where it educated people that the US generally accepted accounting principles was changed. For those of you who don't know what capitalization begins when you move from the what to the how. You will design and develop a software asset. In the past, with waterfall process, where projects are divided in phases, it's easy to know when the preliminary phase of the project is complete and management commits to funding it. With Agile, the lines are blurred. Now, in 2018, Steve Denning published an Agile HR article in Forbes magazine, and at that point, interest around these topics started to pick up around the world, including Asia. Europe seems to be more interested around the topic of Agile HR and Agile finance than the US. However, there's still a few of us in the US who have been experimenting in these areas, and we are here today to share with you what we have tried.
So from the breakout exercise earlier, one of the sentences that we asked you to complete was, the purpose of performance assessment is, and you said, money, rewards, goal settings, manage my salary, set goals and never follow up, or forgettable situations. So let's step back and understand what the original purpose of performance assessment is, and if the current practices are meeting the goals. So what are the purposes of performance assessment? They are to distinguish people between performing and non-performing. They are to help people to improve or swap them out. And it's a way to figure out budget and funding by systematically giving people salaries and rises. So performance management is a way to tease this out. Are these purposes still valid? If you think of it, yes, they are.
Now that we understand the original purpose of performance assessment and that they are still valid, let's see if the current practices are meeting the goals. So what are the practices? First is focus on individual achievement, and it happens once a year, and it force rank people. Now, for those of you who don't know what force ranking is, it is to fit everyone onto a bell curve so as to know who to promote, who to give rises to by how much, and who to sack. Now, let's match up the original purposes of performance assessment and see if the current practices are meeting these goals. First, practice focusing on individuals. Well, yes, you can distinguish performance and non-performance that way, but it leads to heroism and discounts team collaboration, and that's not what we want. Second, it happens annually, at most twice a year. Well, to truly help people to improve, people need feedback early and often. And third, force ranking people, well, it does help figure out funding, but is based on wrong information. The way of distinguishing between performance and non-performance, as we said earlier, basing on individual achievement, discounts team collaboration, and that's not what we want. And the assessment using wrong information, well, gives wrong results. So you're rewarding or dinging the wrong people. Plus, forced ranking is demoralizing. I mean, I work very hard and my team has been showing good results, but we are to fit into a bell curve, and it's dehumanizing. I mean, you may have been told to hire the best, and now you have to fit the best onto a bell curve. And it also lacks transparency. If you're not a senior enough manager, you do not know what happened during those closed-door forced ranking sessions. So while the original purposes of performance assessment are still valid, the current HR practices do not achieve those purposes. And moreover, it demotivates employees, not just individual team members and managers, but even HR doesn't like it. It also reduces business agility.
So why are we still having performance management systems when everyone in the company dreads it? How do we create a system that can achieve the purposes while motivating the employees? So we're here to tell our story. So the main point about performance is to give feedback at the time it's needed and do it often. Agile retrospectives have this already built in, so we took that construct and applied it to performance reviews in an Agile rollout. Before doing that with the teams, though, we made sure it's psychologically safe. We clearly stated that failure is okay, managers have to allow failure, and people wouldn't use the retro feedback against each other. We worked to up-level everyone's skills to create safe spaces. This is a key foundation. We then introduced performance feedback into the retro, We told managers to attend the retros and help guide the right behaviors of what it takes to deliver a product and not just code. We encouraged them to amplify positive actions and address negative habits. We also encouraged team members to help each other out with similar feedback. By doing this, we enabled quick performance feedback loops within the team and managers, and having these documented in the retro notes now served as a repository come performance assessment time. However, not all retros captured this information consistently. People still found performance reviews painful that year because the info in the retro notes were still lacking. So we decided to iterate on this idea and apply it to people's one-on-ones. We came out with a very lightweight one-on-one personal performance template. This template captured timely feedback during one-on-ones with the manager. We came up with this solution because the first part of any performance review is the self-assessment. This template was a success the following year. It made performance reviews easy. It was mostly a copy-paste operation from the 12 templates, one for each month. People didn't have to think hard to write down what they accomplished the past year.
Now, my cautious approach is similar to JF's story, but goes further. You might think that's quite radical. I'll let you be the judge. Now, as JF mentioned, there needs to be a safe environment first. Otherwise, no one would dare speak up regardless of the methods used. So I had a two-pronged approach. First, every quarter, directors would set goals for their organizations. The managers then break those goals down to what it means for their groups. And each team member then comes up with the goals based on the higher level goals. Second, we use retrospectives and sprint reviews as the basis for performance evaluation. Every 2 weeks during retrospectives, people on the team would give feedback to each other. For example, your code sucks, or QA thanking developers for helping them out. Retros exposes both good and bad and never in between. Now, these comments were collected as data, and we looked at the trend over time. The trend is then noted as part of the performance review. Now, during sprint reviews, the entire team is rated based on sprint goals. The sprint goals are not defined by managers, but by team. This is what they're committing to. So the sprint commitment is part of performance assessment and retrospectives. Again, the trend is what matters. Every month, the managers review the goals with the employees, that's the first prong, plus the retro and sprint review trends to give feedback, address any issues, and act on them. Then the managers summarize them to the directors. Now, every quarter, the directors and the managers gather the data from each month, and that's the quarterly reviews. And every year, the managers and the directors gather the data from every quarter, and voila. Now, the difference from JF's story is that managers do not join retrospectives. They let the team work things out. There are two occasions where managers will step in. First, when things are outside of team's control. And second, when things are problematic over time. This means that the managers are actually paying attention to the trend. Scrum Masters are the proxies for managers at Retro, so managers can get the trend data. If the managers could not resolve those issues, they will then involve the directors. So what are the results? First, no need for performance improvement plan. Issues are addressed early. Second, managers already know who the high performers are. No need to force rank to try to fit into a bell curve. And lastly, the documentation is intact, which satisfies the legal and HR requirements. Now, we have offices around the globe, and we started with one office at a time. For some offices, their HRs were on board and trying new things, so they were involved from the very beginning. For the headquarters, HR was not involved at all. We just mapped things into HR's annual process. We only involved them to protect the company when we needed to let go of someone. Now, the headquarters HR eventually got very curious, and we became more radical. But that's a story for another time. But let me summarize what we did. Together with HR, we changed the annual focal process, redefined and remapped roles and responsibilities and levels, re-looked at organization structure. And we also revisited how finance is being done, specifically funding, budgeting, and capitalization. We tried variations of agile finance. Think about it. The organization is only as agile as the least agile department. So what are the takeaways? Give feedback early and often. Feedback process is lightweight and transparent. One team at a time, one office at a time. And if the company can stomach more, then it's time for radical approach. and it will lead to a larger organizational change. Now, before we move on to the next section, I'd like us to do some personal reflection of what you've just heard by doing spiral journal. Please grab a piece of paper and a writing utensil, or if you prefer, a tablet. I want to invite you to focus, and our tool for that is drawing a spiral. You need to concentrate on drawing the spiral so you'll be more focused when you answer the questions. So divide the paper into 4 parts. You can fold it, draw a loop, an X, whatever you like. Draw a slow, tight spiral for 1 minute. Don't lift your pen. Keep it tiny if you can. You'll need to focus all your attention to the spiral. Do this now for 1 minute. Okay, now that we're done drawing the tight spiral, I ask you to respond to a different question or statement in each quadrant for 2 minutes. Try to generate multiple answers for each question or statement. Now, please note, this journal is meant to invite you to reflect alone before going to a group discussion. You won't be asked to share your writings with anyone, but if you would like to share what you wrote down, you can use your discretion to do so. So here's the first question. Write down your response in the first quadrant. Anything regarding performance management that catches your attention? If so, what are they? Here's the second question. Write down your response in the second quadrant. Why do they catch your attention? The third quadrant, write down a few common sense, obvious to you, or straightforward ideas that might seem like mundane improvements that you can implement in your work straight away. Right, in the final quadrant, write down a few bold yet practical or dangerous or unusual ideas that you can try. All right, so time's up. Now, before we continue, it's almost an hour that we have been here, so we're going to take a break. We're going to take a 7-minute break, and JF is going to share the countdown clock on screen. So go stretch your legs, get something to drink, bio break, whatever. We'll be back in 7 minutes. Pause the recording.
So the story is not complete if we only change performance management system without touching reward and recognition. Why? Because what you measure signals the intent to reward. This actually came up during our initial breakout when some people brought it up. So before any of that, let's watch a video.
Climate crisis has some fighting for action. One lawmaker in New Zealand was doing just that, and she left her critics in Parliament baffled, but not over her policies, over her witty response to a heckler.
That's right. 25-year-old Green Party MP Clover Warwick was speaking about the zero carbon bill and how it will affect generations to come when she was interrupted by another lawmaker who jeered at her age. Take a listen.
In the year 2050, I will be 56 years old. Yet, right now, the average age of this 52nd Parliament is 49 years old. Okay, Boomer. Current political institutions have proven themselves incompetent of thinking outside of a short political term.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you know which generation you belong to? If so, which one? Type in chat, answer yes and your generation or no. Let's see. Okay, Boomer, Gen X. Do we have no idea? Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Gen Y, Z, depending on the classification.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Whichever comes after Boomer, that would be Gen X. All right. So these are the generation bands. Were you correct? Give a thumbs up if you were. By the way, do you know that today we have up to 5 generations in the workforce? Do you think that the generations are very different? Here are the magazine covers ranging from 1976 to 2019. It doesn't look like we're different after all. So all generations want the same thing, to be respected, recognized, and rewarded for our work. The difference between them is the form factor that motivates us. Here's an example of what matters to which generation in what life stage. Looking at the graph, the bigger the circle, the more it matters. For example, millennials view that they are recognized if you give them time. So more time equals more recognition. Thus, PTO and flex time autonomy, these are their choice of currency. And of course, nowadays, with lockdown and remote work, parents who need to homeschool their kids would appreciate flexible time. Here's how the 5 generations are distributed in the US workforce today. You may have noticed that rewards and recognition have actually changed over the years. They are changed by people in management at the time based on their experience. Today, the preceding generations make up 60% of the current US workforce. They're mostly in management and have put current reward and recognition systems in place based on their perspective. And that creates a clash with the succeeding generations who are doing most of the actual work. Companies also need to be aware that workers could get pressure from their families with their parents imposing their own expectations on what reward and recognition should be. Additionally, company itself can apply pressure as well because people in leadership have their own expectations. And that's why if a company has only one reward and recognition system, then almost half of its workers will disengage. And disengaged workers are less innovative, less likely to stay long-term, and focus more on output than business value, decreasing the company's agility.
So how do we create a reward and recognition system that is adaptable enough for generations? And how does that tie into performance? Well, let us tell you our stories. I will start with a cautious approach. At this company, after the team met over 80% of their goals, we had some fun team events. On top of that, we gave out special awards. These awards were not monetary and they were inexpensive. Let me give you some ideas. One prize was the Mickey Mouse Fantasia hat. Now, this prize went to the one who made the biggest impact to the team through his ideas and solutions. That person also flew to all our global offices to help, hence the wizard hat. This became a well sought after prize because people thought they would get to travel all over the world. Now, another award was the Firefighter Award. The prize was a blow-up toy fire extinguisher for the person who consistently put out fires. This award led to responsibilities being remapped in the team. I'm not going to detail here about the remapping. It will be illustrated in J.F's story and my radical story later. There were other awards, but I think you get the idea. We had these events twice a year, so long as the team met over 80% of their goals. Other groups like Product and UX UI wanted to participate when they heard about these awards. We require them to come up with a creative prize. Money by itself is not good enough. One of the engineers who was awarded told me, "This is one of a kind, Mun-Wai. I'll treasure it all the time." And he proudly displayed that in his cube with an anti-theft device so no one could steal it. By the way, HR was not involved in any of these activities. So what was being done? We tailored the awards and incentives to the team, unlike HR's traditional go-to methods. When the team likes the awards and incentives, they realize the management knows them, cares about them, and appreciates them. And in turn, they work harder to earn those awards. We started in the headquarters, but team members told people in other offices because it was so much fun. And now all the offices followed suit and did their own version. Word of caution, this is a different budget from the annual bonus and salary increase. So make sure to include this into the next budget cycle. Oh, by the way, HR got curious here too. Maybe I'll tell you the story at the end if we have time.
For me, I was a senior engineering lead at an enterprise company overseeing a critical project. My manager, who I adored, was very good, but he had a very sly side. He came to me one day and said, JF, we have a problem. If we want our product to be on the next CD release in 3 months, you need to attend the weekly CD board review meeting. Most of our enterprise customers didn't like to download things because of security concerns, hence the CD. Of course, being an engineer, I was like, meetings. However, this was my baby. I was architecting this entire product end to end and had my team doing Scrum. I really wanted to see this thing in our customers' hands, so I personally made it my mission to attend these meetings because I didn't want to wait another 9 months for the next CD release. So a few weeks after the first CD release, my manager surprised me. He said, JF, great news, I'm promoting you to a manager. And I was like, thanks, but I don't want to be a manager. He said that I was already doing a first-line manager's job. All the things I was doing with the team, getting them to deliver the product into the customer's hands multiple times, meeting with each member to help solve their problems, and interfacing with other departments in the company so the product goes out. These are all duties of a first-line manager. What happened here, my manager slyly took me out of my engineering silo and aligned my day-to-day work with the outcome in the end. The alignment enabled me to take on some of his responsibilities that allowed me to be promoted.
Now, let me tell you about a radical approach. In another company, I asked the teams, what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand? They said, oh, you mean what does it take to launch or release a product, right? I said, no, because a released product doesn't necessarily reach the customer's hand. They said, but that's not our problem. I told them that they should care and make sure customers are delighted. Otherwise, customers won't pay and we won't get our salaries. So they started listing out what they do, their own responsibilities, and how those map into that question. They soon realized that did not come close to answering the question. So they started talking to their managers and others about what their responsibilities were in relation to that question. Once they understood those responsibilities, they realized some functions could not join them as a team like marketing, but they now knew how to interface with those groups better. They also wanted to take some of their managers' responsibilities into the team. The managers let them try, and some even coached them how to do those duties. Now, when the team took on additional duties, they were remapping the roles within the team to include these new duties with the manager's help. The team and the managers worked together to redefine the criteria for promotions. This way, a clear growth path emerged and levels were redefined. It allows the team members to decide what to learn and which path to choose. It sets the stage for the promotion ladder. Now, interestingly, the managers liked what was happening because the team took over duties they didn't like to do. They thought, maybe this could work with their own bosses. So they went to the directors and asked, where do you fit in relation to what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand? Are there any duties related to that which I can try? Now, that led them to remap responsibilities and redefine levels and growth path. Now, granted, these managers have good relationships with their bosses, so they felt safe to discuss such matters freely. The funny thing is, the directors were also liking it and wonder if they could do the same with their VPs. Now, they were more cautious because some VPs do not like being questioned what their part is in the process. So for those directors, they told the VPs that managers took initiatives by taking on some of the duties, the one that they didn't like. And they asked, are there things you don't like in your job that perhaps I can help? When the directors didn't understand why a VP did a certain thing, they would ask for the purpose, which sparked some interesting discussions. Some duties remapped again, new growth paths identified, and levels redefined. At each level, people now know exactly what the growth path is, how the levels are defined, how they can get promoted, and what being promoted means. With all the remapping and redefining, we still did not touch the corporate taxonomy. We separated out the roles and responsibilities. For the outside world, they still see people getting salary rises and being promoted to manager, director, or VP. which is the older generation's expectation of reward and recognition, while the responsibilities associated with those roles have changed. This was done one office at a time. We notify local and corporate HR once we redefine the levels and promotion criteria. What started out in a team propagated up the levels and became a radical change. So what are the takeaways? The key question of what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand teaches the team how to have a holistic view instead of just focusing on their own little part, may it be UX, UI design or coding or testing, etc. It helps the team to focus on outcome instead of output and to identify the value and waste in the system. It also helps align to strategy and purpose to day-to-day work. This is tailored to the teams. It can be team-driven, like in my experience, or manager-driven, like in JF's experience, where the manager acted as a coach to him. Some of the responsibilities belonged to the manager previously, and now they're included in the team. You may have noticed the pattern is replicated across teams and up the levels. By the way, when you replicate up the level, as I mentioned in my story, the generation gap between two immediate levels is not that big. So you can understand what motivates your immediate lower level and can support them, even if that doesn't motivate you. That allows the incentives to be changed to suit the needs of the generations in that level. If you compare the head of the company to an individual team member, the generation gap is so big that there is very little to no understanding of what motivates the lower level. And because of that, unfortunately, most of the time, the higher-ups would dismiss the wants and needs of the lower levels. And that's why the pattern is replicated up the levels, one level at a time. As the next generation gets promoted, they can change incentives and rewards to satisfy the needs at that level. Last but not the least, put thoughts into the rewards because it drives behavior, so be creative. You may notice in my story that not only those awards were different, hence being creative, but they change from time to time. You need to keep it fresh, change it up, otherwise people would game the system. When you do each of these four things, roles and responsibilities are remapped, levels and growth paths are redefined with agile values in them, and people are vested and engaged. And the result is, you now have an adaptable and agile reward and recognition system that satisfies all generations and levels.
One more thing. Is it really all about generations? There are other contexts as well, like cultural contexts. And even within cultural contexts, there are ethnic culture, company culture, team culture, and the like. So let's summarize the key points. For performance management, it's about giving feedback early and often. Feedback is also transparent and lightweight. It's based on purpose and values. It's tailored to the teams. It's about trying small before going big, from team to department, from individual office to entire company, from cautious to radical. You need the trust in the level where you want to get to. And when you start going radical, you'll remap roles and responsibilities, redefine levels and growth paths. And if you go very radical, you'll even touch on agile finance. For reward and recognition, it's about keeping it fresh and being creative. Rewards and recognition are also based on purposes and values, and is tailored to the teams. It's trying small before going big, from team to department, from individual office to entire company, from cautious to radical. You need the trust in the level where you want to get to, and when you start going radical, you'll remap roles and responsibilities, redefine levels and growth paths, relook at organizational structure, and if you go very radical, you'll even touch on agile finance. Did you notice how similar the conclusions are for performance management and for reward and recognition? We highlighted the only difference between the two.
Now, before we end, I would like to have a word with the HR professionals who are in this meetup. You may notice that in many of my experiences, I did not involve HR. So does it mean HR doesn't fit in an agile world? Oh no, on the contrary, they're crucial to an organization. It's high time we take a look at the HR department and understand how their job can affect the agility of the teams. As you know, we are not HR professionals. However, I have worked closely with HR, so I know how traditional HR hinders agility and what a product development organization needs from HR. Now, when I say traditional HR, I mean functional HR model with specialists. So first, let's talk about our impression of HR. HR is heavily siloed. For example, recruiting, team, talent management, total rewards, learning and development, HR operations, etc. These are all different functions within HR. They work separately and they don't talk to each other. Now, I have worked in organizations where they're HR BPs, the HR business partner, but those HR BPs only partner with senior management. So they only understand what senior management wants. They don't know what the team wants, which leads to HR actually having their go-to methods, and they apply them to all groups and situations. Now, those methods and initiatives may work for some groups, but not others. Also, HR designs solution at the top, then roll it out to the rest of the organization. Now, if HR doesn't want people to go around their processes like I did and will continue to do, then those need to change. I also found that more and more HR departments rename themselves to people operations, yet keep doing all that I mentioned in the previous slide. That does not work. Your mindset, roles, and practices needs to change with it. So what are these changes? First, all the silos within HR needs to come down. Second, HR needs to understand not just company strategy, but also business strategy and product strategy. Those are not the same thing. They also need to understand the teams, what Agile is, and what the C-suite wants. Otherwise, they won't be able to help define culture, organization structure, hiring strategy, promotion strategy, remote work policies, well-being initiatives, etc. Now, if HR understands what I just mentioned, then they would know there is no such thing as one size fits all. HR really needs to understand the goals and problems at the source, whether it be team level or senior executive level or anywhere in between. Prototype a solution and test it out. When HR does all those 4 things, you will find that the roles in HR, or you may call it people operations at this point, and Agile coach starts to merge. And that's because HR should be the ones who lead the transformation in the company. Now, all these may sound daunting, but don't be discouraged. There are places where HR professionals can get help on how to apply Agile in their discipline and how the principles and roles need to change and how to work with other departments in the company. Agile HR community that I mentioned in the beginning, started by Rena Hellstrom and Natal Dank, is one such place. They have meetups as well as hands-on training programs to be Agile HR practitioners. Those training programs are crafted by HR professionals for HR professionals, not tech Agile. So at the conclusion of this section, we're going to spend a few minutes doing Spiral Journal again. You can use the same piece of paper or a different one, or if you prefer, a tablet. And again, divide the paper into 4 parts. You can fold it, draw a loop, an X, whatever you like. Draw a slow, tight spiral for a minute. Don't lift your pen. Keep it tiny if you can. You will need to focus all your attention to the spiral. So do this now for 1 minute. Okay, now that we're done drawing the tight spiral, we'll ask you to respond to a different question or statement in each quadrant for 2 minutes. Try to generate multiple answers for each question or statement. A reminder, this journal is meant to invite you to reflect alone before going to a group discussion. You won't be asked to share your writing with anyone, but if you'd like to share what you wrote down, you can use the discretion to do so. So here's the first question. Write down your response in the first quadrant. Anything regarding reward and recognition catches your attention? If so, what are they? Okay, here's the second question. Write down your response to the second quadrant. Why do they catch your attention? Okay, I think you probably know what is coming. In the third quadrant, write down a few common sense, obvious to you, or straightforward ideas that might seem like mundane improvements that you can implement in your work straight away. All right, in the last quadrant, write down a few bold yet practical or dangerous or unusual ideas that you can try. And I hope it's not the same list as the previous list. So be creative. Okay, now that we have written down our thoughts, let's share them with each other. We'll put you in pairs again, share your thoughts with your partner, and see if you can co-create better ideas. You will have 3 minutes. Now, after those 3 minutes, we will combine the pairs. So you will have 4 people in the room. You have 5 minutes to share with your new pair to see if you can co-create better ideas. After that 5 minutes, then we'll all come back together and you'll share the co-created ideas to the rest of us. Okay, so hope that is clear. JF, are we ready?
Give me a second. One person left, and so I have to recreate some of the rooms.
No problem.
Eight, 6, 6, see.
Are we not doing random?
I'm doing random, but I had to move people because it messed up all the.
No problem.
I am good to go. We have the room.
Okay, well, we will see you back in 8 minutes. Bye-bye. Yay.
Come back, folks. Let's wait while the rest of the folks start coming back. We still have a few who are all right. 12, 13. Awesome. Looks like we have everyone back. Welcome back, everybody. Let's hear some ideas and insights that you have worked on together as a group. Could we have each group share 1 or 2 ideas? Who would like to start? Group 2, group 5, group 6, in terms of breakout rooms?
Do we even know the number of our groups?
Exactly. Well, if you want me to read it out, room 2 has Eddie, Carl, Paul, and Veda. And room 5 has Maru, Michael, Steve, and Tom. And room 6 is Anil, Carlos, and Rachel.
So who would like to start?
I'm going to nominate Michael from our group because he seemed to be taking good notes.
Yeah, nominate
Oh,
Michael.
that's a bit scary. I'm not good at that. So my notes are crap. But in any case, okay. So I kind of like, we talked around question 1, and we came up with, and Tom will have to elucidate. There's a nice word for you. On alignment, because I didn't quite get everything that he said. But on the second question, we came up with a company. Basically, we want the in answer to number 1. Sorry, I'm sounding a bit crap, but anyway, company, and we want the company to appear as if they're invested in individuals' growth, and we said that. Basically, bottom line about it is it has to be communicated sincerely, so that people don't get that perception is more important than reality. Okay, so the communication with sincerity is important. Then on the third point, which was common sense ideas for immediate improvement, we were basically looking at just. I mean, I came up with answers there. Unfortunately, we didn't all come up with answers, so too bad. So we were just looking at motivational things that we could do that wouldn't necessarily steal from team time and stuff like that. So weekends away, meals, learning materials, and opportunities to meet influencers like yourselves. And then in terms of number 4, we sort of had a number of ideas, but one of the better ideas seems to be to come up with a peer-to-peer strategy so that people can kind of link up together. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Good. Well, thank you. Room 5. All right. The other 2 rooms. Any ideas, insights?
We had we basically showed our notes and didn't discuss much. So they said they kind of liked me to talk, and I'm going to focus on the solutions. Rachel said an interesting thing regarding money, that if you make pay people, respect people to pay them enough that they don't have to regard their necessities. They can focus on mastery and autonomy and other things, and also the regards of time, to the generation X and stuff. And some things that I've put kind of told to that. I've put equal rewards because everyone has a role in the results that the company gets. So I think it's only fair. And one more radical is to abolish work time, because we as humans don't produce as machines that have. Anyways, it's kind of like the managing energy of Henry Schwartz, I think the name. And one another that from M3.0 is transparency regarding salaries and why. And from O2, adaptive org structures.
Transparencies in salaries is very radical to a lot of companies.
Exactly. Yeah. That's dangerous too.
Very dangerous, yes.
Good. All right. Then room 2.
I'll go for us. I think we didn't get far beyond insights. We didn't get to radical solutions, but I agree with all the previous radical solutions. So we talked. We had a good chat about motivation and how all this is linked and possibly causes a lot of demotivation and disengagement because of lack of fairness in the system in a lot of organizations. Yeah, and about how it's skewed. Often these systems are skewed towards people who can advocate for themselves and promote themselves well, but they may not necessarily be the ones working the hardest or doing the most valuable work. They just can sell themselves well often, and then that leads to kind of demotivation in those who have not been able to, or who've been the losers in that kind of system, I suppose. Yeah, so that was a pretty good chat we had on that, and I think we kind of touched on topics like kind of I suppose, what was it, Carl, your thing about participation trophies? You want to talk a little bit about that, or kind of just awards?
Yeah, I was kind of making analogy to participation trophies that kids get, and only because it was, I listened to a podcast about it recently, and the motivation of those and the current trend to be used to be a reaction against them, because we need to teach kids to win or lose, but actually they've been around for 100 years. And they themselves are a reaction to kids being overly competitive. So it's kind of, I know, it's like the pendulum swinging, and actually for me it's contextual. And we need to understand, what's meaningful to different people, and it's not just the reward in isolation. Probably there's lots of other different things going on that shape people and that kind of that people respond to.
Definitely.
Very good. So I saw actually talking about reward and recognition. There was a question early on, I believe it's from Evan, about giving examples of fresh awards and recognition ideas for software engineers, monetary and non-monetary. And what Carl just said reminds me, because Carl said the participation awards, rewards. Well, there are other awards and recognition you could have. So one of them that we actually did, 2 of them, one is actually for fun. It's the engineers, that engineer has been with the company the So we, the little award that we gave him is actually a compass so that he won't get lost. And it's a real compass, so he can actually use it for hiking. So, I mean, he liked it for that. And so they liked it. Another one is actually the most helpful engineer. That is to help also counteract if HR have the individual performance reviews, but we're giving out awards for most helpful. So what do you mean by most helpful? Well, let's see. It's a team's definition that you are actually most helpful. So that is actually a fun award as well, because then the team actually says you're most helpful, and people say, hey, that award is actually quite fun, and they want to get it next time. So there are just some ideas there, sort of to spark your creativity, right?
Yep.
And one more idea for you, and this is totally out there. This is definitely, I don't know if it's radical, but it's totally out there. And I'll just give you this example, hopefully to spark your imagination as well. And it's definitely very creative. And it is, remember JF said, one more thing, is it all about the generations?
Yes.
And so this particular example is about familial and parental pressure, because they have their own expectations of what reward and recognition should be for the children. So for Asian culture, which I know very well, that parents expect their kids to be at least a director when they're in the mid-30s. So to them, status and title go together. When missing one, you're considered good for nothing. However, the kid may not even want to go into management. So you have the clash at home and affecting his work. Now, we have this, one of the offices in Asia, this general manager, he actually wanted to find a way to attract and recruit better candidates. And somehow he found a way to get that office to be awarded by the city and province that they're in. Now, the award is not just the best place to work in the entire province. It's actually a rather prestigious award. I can't really describe to you what it is because no equivalent actually exists in the Western culture. But here's the interesting thing. There are a number of unintended consequences. So the people in the office are actually proud of the award, and they can now tell the parents about it. So the parents can brag about the kids without having the kids actually needing to be a director or VP. So they would say something like, do you know that my son works in this company, which is awarded this ABC award? Now, the second unintended consequence is the people in offices actually work even harder to ensure they're worthy of the award. And the funny thing is other offices heard about this. And so they decided to do a similar thing for the local offices, for the local culture, right? And so this is just one example of really creative example of, it's not really a reward to person or teams, but it is somehow a way to sort of counteract the cultural or ethnic cultural expectation without actually touching any corporate processes. So that's a very creative solution. Now, I'm hoping that this example will hopefully spark your imagination of what you can do in your own local environment of what can you do, right? So not only look at individual rewards and recognition, not only look at how you assess your performance, but is there anything like that that is actually seemingly not related, but actually solve problems as well? So yeah, so that's one for you to out there.
Yep.
Now we do have, oh, sorry, JF.
I was going to say, to kind of piggyback off what you just said, the pattern here is about empathy and understanding people, right? Because right now, for example, there's a lot of memes out there, for example, that are about intergenerations. But in reality, if you really dig deep beyond the memes, it's about what people desire and want to be rewarded upon and recognized for. And when you understand that, whether it's generational, cultural, or some other thing, that's how an HR organization can look at things and cater things to various parts of the organization. In the end, it's still rewards and recognition, but the flavors are different depending on the context, because companies have multicultural people on the company or multiple locations, right? And of course, these are constrained by local laws as well.
And I am actually curious. So JF and I have given you quite a few examples, and I'm wondering, do you have any examples of fresh awards and recognition ideas? I think Evan actually wants to hear from the rest of you.
We have a cultural reward that regards culture of our organization, but it's kind of like only little fun contests. Like for Carnival, we had the fantasy themed. We had our picture sent to HR regarding which fantasy we wore were in the carnival here in Brazil, and we showed it to everyone, and we laughed together, and it was a fun meeting. And then they gave we voted for the best fantasy, and they were given one pair of our socks or iFood coupons. It's because our socks are really pretty. So the company socks are really pretty. And another that we've had on onboarding, the most creative way to present yourself to the company, and I won that one. I did a TikTok, and they gave this kind of pillow table, so I can now sit and with the computer on my lap and stuff.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yep.
Awesome pillows.
So we are coming up to almost the time limit for this meetup. So thank you so much for listening and participating. Here's our contact info again. We would love to connect with everyone here.
If you have any questions, I know that there's some questions in the chat. Would love to hear from you. Connect with us. Send us the questions in LinkedIn. We'll be happy to follow up as well. And on top of our individual websites, come check out our combined website, our Agile Tales, where you'll find She Said, He Said columns and podcasts. Our podcasts are available on the major platforms like Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and Amazon Music. We also have workshops coming in Q2 where you will get actually more details into what we discussed today, as well as hands-on exercises for you to try and practice. So come to our workshop if you have more questions or if you want more examples and actual hands-on exercise. Now, by the way, we are using Liberating Structure to help facilitate the interactive talk today, since Liberating Structure is a collection of tools and facilitation techniques that foster wider participation while drawing out greater difference and variation within groups. It is very helpful, both in person and remote. So if you'd like, we can send you a PDF of what liberating structures we use today. And if you want to know more, reach out to us. So thank you again. Carl, back to you.
Great. Thank you very much to both of you. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Mun-Wai. That was really entertaining, really interesting. Yeah, kind of thought-provoking as well. So thank you. I don't have any closing notes other than to just say our next meetup is on April the 21st next month. Portia Tung is going to run a session for us. I think it's going to be 6:30, so 6:30 British Summer Time. Again, so we'll probably start a little bit earlier. And we think she's kind of talking about doing something on the research that Portia's done on play in work. So just waiting to confirm the details, but April the 21st, hopefully see you all then. And I would actually just one other thing to add. Great to have such an international audience. I think we've kind of just possibly our record for number of countries represented. So the pandemic has, I think, as J.F. said earlier, I'm not sure whether it's before we started or not, but there's some good things come out of this pandemic, and being able to connect with people globally is one of those things, I think, rather than just our local Brighton meetup.
And
thanks very much.
Your list, Carl.
What was that? Sorry.
Add me to your list. You got one from Africa here.
Yeah, global. It's we're all over. Thank you. But yeah, thank you for joining from Africa. Okay, thanks everybody. I think we'll share the slides on the meetup site and probably a link to the video as well.
Yep.
So keep an eye on there. Otherwise, hopefully see you next month.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good
Thanks,
week.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Mun-Wai. Thanks, J.F.